be sitting up. All right. So thank you so much for joining me on this fun little live podcast we've got going on here. I go by Kay, but I'm the host of 24-Hour YA Book Blog. It's a book blog focused on young adult fiction, young adult literature, and it's all about reviewing and just making bookish content. And today I'm here with a great panel of authors, and we are here to talk about YA marketing and promotion, especially for the focus being authors of color. It is a very broad topic, but there's a lot that we can really discuss on this, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first, I will have the authors introduce themselves and their books.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany N. Williams. I am the author of The Forge and Fracture Saga, and that's 2 books so far. That's Self Same Metal, which is book 1, and Saint Seducing Gold, which is book 2. That's it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anat Deracine, and my book is Driving by Starlight, and it came out in 2018. I'll pass to Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Chen. My debut YA came out last year. It's called, let's go this way, Artifacts of an X. It came out in November last year, and it's my second book will be coming out March 2025.
Hi, I'm Ivelisse Housman. I'm the author of Unseelie, which came out last January. Sorry, trying to tilt that. And its sequel, Unending, will be coming out sometime next year. We'll see when.
Hi, my name is Talia Tucker. My book is Rules for Rule Breaking. Sorry if you can't see that. And a sequel spinoff should be coming out sometime in 2025.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aceves. I'm the author of This Is Why They Hate Us. It's a young adult contemporary. No plans for a second book, so I will be milking this until who knows when.
Good for you.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. So to start off, I thought I would start with a very simple question, and that is, out of all of the social medias, which would you say is your favorite when you're trying to promote your book?
I like Instagram, probably because I'm a millennial. So like, I remember I got rid of my BlackBerry and got a smartphone so I could get on Instagram just to date myself. So I still have a lot of love for that platform and everything. And I still like doing, static images and stuff. And I feel like Instagram Live is really easy to use. So that's like my go-to.
I still use Twitter, still call it Twitter, and I've been starting to use Substack a little bit more and just more directly having a connection with readers. I am also extremely introverted and shy and not very social media aware, and so I don't use any of the other ones, really. I occasionally post a photo or 2 on Instagram, but that's about it.
For me, I love Instagram. I just feel like I also get great book recommendations there, or like get to see fun content. And for the most part, I feel like readers interact with me most on Instagram.
I loved book Twitter back in the day. I had so many great experiences, like connecting with people. I got into a mentorship program because of Twitter. Like, so much good has come of it, but as it has declined, I've moved a lot more to Instagram. I refuse to download TikTok because I just can't open Pandora's box. But I'm very visual. So, I kind of enjoy making posts sometimes with the, like taking pretty pictures, making artwork and all of that stuff. And I also feel like as more people have moved away from Twitter, the engagement on Instagram has been a lot better.
I totally agree with Twitter. I used to be on there all the time. I think I met most of my writing friends there. But I've mostly moved over to Instagram too, because I'm kind of, I think I might be on the older side of the millennials too. So I'm very much on Instagram. I have a TikTok and a YouTube channel, but I am very inconsistent.
I'm glad we're all saying Twitter because I refuse to call it anything else. But like Anat and Ivelisse and Talia, like my introduction to writers, like the writing community online, was through Twitter, and so I do miss that old Twitter, and part of me still has the nostalgia for it. But like currently, I guess my favorite would be TikTok, scrolling and producing media, because like or not media, videos, whatever. But I'm sort of a ranty person, and it's hard sometimes to type all that and to split it up by tweet, and it's hard on Instagram. So with TikTok, it's like I can rant for 3 minutes and then feel better about certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you guys ended up having like sort of a common like social media that you use now. I'm so surprised it's Instagram, because I feel like for me, like as a reader, it's so hard to find like posts because of like the way the feed updates. Sometimes it just shows like very specific stuff, and I'm like, I feel like I can't find anything. But I guess for promotion, it's like, I guess it's really like, you guys use it a bit more, so it's easier for you guys to like use all the features and everything. And for me, I guess I prefer Twitter. I know, yeah, we're all calling it Twitter still. But yeah, I think as a reader, for those of you guys that are still pretty active on there, I think it's like really easy to like keep up with like your like events and like any updates you guys have on your books and stuff. But like as an author, what would you guys say makes the platform you prefer? Like, what is your preferred type of post that like engages with readers the most, you think?
It's so posts with my face in them, like, and posts that are like more personal tend to do better. And I think it's partially because I still have a lot of my family following me on Instagram. So of course they love to see what I'm up to, but I think that it adds that like there's a person behind this book aspect to it, and takes away like a little bit of the mystery, which I miss sometimes. I'm like, oh, I remember, like, I didn't know diddly squat about the authors I grew up loving, and there's like some of that mystery I miss a little bit. But it seems like posts that show my face and are more like personal and me engaging with my readers on a one-to-one level are the ones that do better.
Yeah, I think for me, it's on Instagram. I would agree with what Brittany just said. Like anything that has my face in it actually gets people interested and wanting to talk to me, which is great. On Twitter, I think the kinds of things that I've found are, even though it's not the same as it used to be, I do find that people are a lot more willing to engage a little bit more deeply. And you can sort of like meet somebody online, but then it actually turns into a real connection where you can sort of turn into critique partners or something like that, or even just finding about this event and things like that. So it feels like a bit of more of an intimate connection, which I think I appreciate. And Jennifer?
Yeah, for me, Instagram DMs actually have been really helpful of like connecting with bookstagrammers, fellow authors. Like it's kind of to me, it sort of replaces Twitter's DMs for me in a sense, because I'm able to connect with people that way. My best posts have been a mixture of like revealing a cover. Obviously, that's always exciting, but since I don't do that every day, I would say anything that has a little bit of fun in my life, where I did one post that was like 5 fun facts you might not know about me, and like where I used to work in high school was a frozen yogurt shop, like stuff like that, just so that people know that who I am besides just the book and book promotion and stuff like that. So, and I think any time I've done an event, I like to take behind the scenes photos or video and kind of show people what it was like before the event started.
Yeah, I enjoy using Instagram, but I definitely have noticed like as a user how much less of like other people's stuff that I see. Like I have to really go looking for the posts that I want to see, and I like feel like as a reader that's more inconvenient, but like that's the hand that fate has dealt us. And unfortunately, like I feel like a lot of my videos on Instagram tend to do better, and the two kinds of videos that tend to perform best are either ones where it's a stupid joke that I think that 3 people are going to watch and then way more people watch it, or the ones that are like really vulnerable and weird, which is I guess the positive flip side of the idea of like knowing too much about the authors you admire. Like I enjoy connecting with readers in that way of like, hey, here's stuff that I struggle with too, or whatever. So that at least like keeping it real, like hopefully, you know, you can make someone feel a little bit less alone.
Yeah, it's always the post that you think is nobody's going to care about that gets all your likes. But the post for me, as everyone said, is the one that has my face in it, which I hate doing. Because when I was younger, I didn't really care what authors looked like, to be honest. So it didn't occur to me that people would care. So those videos do well for me. And then also my book is kind of for like the Wattpad, like Tumblr kind of K-pop girlies, which I use as a gender neutral term. So I have like a lot of like fan edit kind of video, like real things that I put together. And those tend to do really well too.
So sort of similar to Talia on TikTok, like I do try to tap into already established fandoms, and then I act like the Amazon algorithm, and I'm like, if you like this, you'll like this. And so even though I think my book is like totally different from Heartstopper, I will never stop using Heartstopper as a comp just because of like the amount of people who watch the show and have read, you know, the graphic novels, and like I'm like, it's queer boys, whatever, it's not that much of a jump, like just read my book. And then same thing with Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is a little easier because it's like, you know, by a Mexican who's like chaotic and falls in love with a guy who is like way too put together. Like I'm like, if you like that vaguely, then like come over here. And people are kind of split on TikTok right now, dealing with like hashtags. But I still use hashtags because I feel like anything that I've ever put without a hashtag has just sort of faded away into the ether. So yeah, anything like that.
Yeah, but like looking at the chat, like my explore algorithm on Instagram is like, oh, you like books? Here's like spicy like snippets. And I'm like, I write young adult. Like, can we please? I don't need this to be just like on main right now.
I know, yeah. For me, like I feel like I'll just end up seeing like a lot of the books, you know, that we already know about, like on my feed. So sometimes it just makes it hard to like find authors' posts or like new like updates or anything. But you know, I guess it's about like seeing how you can make it work for you, right? Like, you know, keeping up with the authors you follow and making sure you're going to their pages and interacting, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's funny though, because I've been fed ads for my own book. And I'm like, you know what? I am the target market for this book. Thank you. But it's like, it's weird because you almost have to get so, in order to see the books that you want to like, or in order to see like young adult, you have to specifically only interact with like content about young adult books. And most readers aren't, especially like adult readers, we aren't like that narrow in our interests. So it just, the algorithms make it really, really hard for you to see basically all of the things that you want to see, because they're so in that like marketing way of putting people in tiny little boxes so that we can make sure we sell them as many things as possible. It doesn't benefit us to be real humans who are interested in a multitude of things. So yeah, I just, my books that I like, the adult books that I read, I just can't post about them, because then it's like that's all I'm gonna get. So I try to keep like my social media focused on supporting other YA authors and looking at like other YA books. And then I just also, I don't need my teen readers to know the spicy adult books I'm reading. Like, please don't read those. These are not for y'all. Don't read those.
Imagine if you started trying to write across genres, which is when the algorithm gets really confused.
And along the line of algorithms, in general, like we obviously know how algorithms are sometimes. Would you say that with your posts when you're talking about your books that you know, they get a lot of traction, or do you have to post like maybe multiple times? And if you want to, you can speak to your experience about like being like a non-white author in like the publishing space for sure. And you know, just if you find that your posts are always reaching your audience, or maybe it takes a few tries, or just any experience you want to chat about.
I don't want to start again, so somebody else can take the lead. I feel like I'm hogging all the conversation.
I guess I can go. But basically, I would say, you know, I have a very small follower count on all my social media presences. I think I definitely feel like it's very hard to reach my audience. I also feel like part of that is I don't know who my audience is necessarily, right? Like it's not always just young adults reading young adult fiction. And then also another aspect is, I think, you know, especially you're asking about the, you know, non-white angle. I, you know, started off never wanting to be on social media, never wanting to be out in a public space because of all the other kind of horrible things that might happen, right? Like you get the trolls, you get the people just sort of like the vitriol, the people attacking you and all of this stuff. And I was just like, I don't have time for that. I don't need that in my life. And so I'd always been very quiet. And I didn't even have a Twitter account until I actually was being published. And so I think, you know, part of it is on my own side where I've been very slow to pick up on some of the etiquette. Like, when can I just like talk to somebody online that I don't know in real life? Is that okay? Can I at them, or are they going to be offended? And all of these kinds of questions that I would say don't have the answers to. I'm not as savvy with the social dynamics, and it changes based on the platform, right? Some things are okay on TikTok that are not okay on Instagram. And so I would say that it's still a big learning curve, and I'm still trying to figure out both what I want to put out there and how to find the people who want that content.
For me, I found that when my illustrator of my book posted about my book, like when other people post about my book, I get new followers, which I find like because they like her covers and how she illustrates them, or they're romance readers. So that's been really helpful, is when I'm tagged in something else. I think that's been helpful more than me promoting my own book.
Honestly, I try not to like think of social media as like the means to an end for the most part, because you have so little control over who you're reaching and how people react to it. So for me, and also obviously it's different because like I'm biracial, I look super white, and so like in some ways I don't have to worry about like people making certain judgments based on my appearance. But I tend to focus on just posting stuff that I feel like posting, or stuff that is for the people who are already following me. And hopefully, like, if they like it, they'll share it. That'll bring other people in. When people read my book and then go like look me up online, they'll see that and be interested and follow me for future stuff. And so like I feel like such a big part of social media and book marketing in general is just like learning to let go and accepting like what's going to happen is going to happen, and I can only control what I do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say social media for me is not so much to bring in new readers or new people, but more so to just engage with the ones that I already have. So because like everybody's been saying, like the algorithm doesn't really pick us up that much. So you kind of have to go looking for us deliberately to find us. So I think I've gotten a lot of messages or like DMs from people who've read my book, like, oh my God, I loved it. And so that for me is why I keep social media going. Because if I wasn't a writer, I probably would drop off the internet and you'd never hear from me again. But just for that aspect, so people feel updated and feel kind of engaged and part of my writing process is why I keep it up.
Yeah, so with TikTok, it was really funny. Like in the run up to like my release, which was 2 years ago, I kept thinking about this episode of SpongeBob, which was like one of the scenes was turned into a meme where every time Squidward puts his hand out, like it's silence, and then when SpongeBob puts his hand out, it's like round of applause. And for me, like the Squidward thing was anytime I talked about my book, it would like I would just know that the video was going to tank. Anytime I made it like a dumb joke, like Ivelisse said, like it would be, you know, one of my highest viewed videos that week, which is really annoying. And then I noticed too, like, not to be dramatic, but to be dramatic, like I feel like my book is also sort of like the opposite of the Midas touch a lot for other people. So Talia was, or I think Jen was talking about when she was like tagged and things by other people. When people make TikToks about my book, I like go to their page and I look at their other videos, and it's like all those other videos like have so many more views, and mine's the one that's like the anomaly. So that's fun. But I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's more about quantity, and like, you know, sometimes I'll, you know, like plan a video and be like try to be creative about it, and then like it doesn't really do well, but then something that I record in 2 seconds like takes off, and I'm like, okay, I need to, it's more of the quantity versus, you know, the quality aspect of it. But yeah, so and I think it's not, I don't always just post book content, or like my book content. Like I like to just comment on a lot of things, and sometimes that just gets me more followers, and then I'm like, well, if I have more followers, hopefully that translates to more views. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah. So for me, well, Aaron, you've mentioned this online a couple times. And a couple issues that I have when I like with, or things I'm trying to get around when talking about my book. One, we know that algorithms specifically suppress content talking about like queer people, queer anything. As soon as you start, you know, diverging from heteronormativity, then your views start to like sink. And my book is also sometimes the opposite of the Midas touch for folks. I'm like, oh nope, sorry, that one has like a tenth of the views of your other videos. Sorry, but thanks so much for talking about it. And also like TikTok users have shown that if they can appear more white in their videos, those videos tend to do better. So it's like, damned for, you know, just being myself. I'm not going to change what I write or anything. So we just going, you know, we ride on that. What I do is I run ads. I'll like throw $20 at, you know, I hate giving Zuckerberg my money, but I will throw $20 at him and, you know, boost a post here, boost a post there, especially if I'm like feeling a little out of control for things. I'll just, you know, us say, well, here's something I can do. I can throw a couple dollars at an ad and have that be boosted. I do the same on TikTok as well. I come at this, I used to be a social media marketing manager in my past life. So I bring some of that to like figuring out what I'm doing and what I want to post. And then ultimately last year when I was debuting, and also this year when book 2 was coming out, I didn't have the time or the energy to do any of this. So I outsourced it and I hired a social media management company. So I have them running stuff for me. And it's helped my mental health in a way that is like invaluable. It helped to kind of keep me afloat in a moment where I was completely overwhelmed by the actual work of being an author. And I feel like a lot of times people don't talk about when they spend money on social media stuff as authors, because it feels a little shameful. Even though it's not, there's no shame in that. Because there was a time when you could go viral organically. That time is not now. And that is okay. So I think that has been kind of most beneficial for me. Actually like bringing in help when I needed it, and, you know, running ads when I can. And if you don't have money to do that, just partner with some other, you know, do exchanges with other folks on social media, do, you know, boost each other's stuff. There are ways to be creative. You know, you can save time. It can be, it can be cheap, it can be good, or it can be fast. So yes, cheap, good, or fast. So you get 2 of those. I wanted it to be fast, so it's not necessarily going to be cheap. But if you have time to make it fast and good, then save your coins.
And also, like, effort that you put into something yourself isn't necessarily cheap, because you also have to consider, like, which I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, I fully agree with you. There's a ton of stuff that I was like, well, like, I'm just going to have to, like, DIY this and figure out a way to make it work. But, like, as authors, like, we mostly want to be doing the actual work of being an author, like writing books and answering emails. And it can, like, really suck to feel, especially as a debut author with, like, so much pressure on you, to feel like you have to be committing so much energy to figuring out, like, how to make this certain, like, social media strategy work and making posts and all of that. So it's just, I don't know, worth considering.
I think it's also, I think most of you guys have published more recently than I have. And back when I was getting my debut out, nobody told me that I had to do any of it. And so I think, you're like, whatever we're doing now is already more, and we're being asked to do more than we were back then. And we're a lot more savvy than people were back then in terms of what kinds of things were on the table, right? Like, I mean, nobody told me anything about, you have to go and market yourself. You have to have a social media presence. You have to take out ads, none of this. And so, especially, I think, being traditionally published, you just don't have the exposure of that you would if you were self-publishing, to know all the other things around book marketing and publicity that you have to do. And even being traditionally published, you still have to do it, but nobody really told us that.
I think also the younger generations value authenticity above everything. So I think that the more calculated you are, you have to, like, really strike this weird balance of, like, because they obviously know they're being marketed to, but they can't know it too much because they just, I don't know, like, they have, like, this visceral reaction to being marketed to, because I think, like, since we've been young, we're like, I forget what the statistic is. It's like you're hit with, like, thousands of ads every day that you don't even realize. So I think as soon as they feel like they're being sold, they just kind of are like, ew, no. So I think for me, I just try not to be calculated, and the things that I just kind of do, like, off the fly without really thinking about it, are the things that do the best. So, yeah.
And that sort of segues into another related topic, because obviously, you guys are talking about, like, what you do for social media to, just engage with your readers and just, get the word of your books out there. So I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of on, like, the publishing side, like, do you see there's, like, this like disconnect like in the work that's put in from, like, the publisher versus, like, you guys? And if you guys want to share what you think on that, if you have any, like, personal anecdotes you want to add, feel free to do so.
Well, to be honest, it's kind of hard to know what your publisher is doing. There's a lack of transparency. So I kind of don't really know what's going on until I'll get an email like, hey, we have this thing for you. And then that's how I'll find out that they've been submitting me for, interviews or whatever. But I don't know. It's really hard to know. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, so I think it's, in hindsight, you do find out, right? Like, for example, like, what other debuts in your cohort are getting in terms of either marketing, promotions, events, or also book launches and things like that. And I think, there's two things that we have to remember in terms of, like, how the publishing industry works generally. One is there's no money in publishing. Nobody's got any money. And so a lot of the time, The publisher does what minimum they can with like that's free or cheap, which might be, you know, a few reviewers or few influencers here and there. And if it takes off, then they'll put more money behind it. So if like, you know, if there's like a flywheel that starts moving, then they can feed it more money and more support, because then the book can really shine and go on. But if it doesn't, if it needs more attention than that, like if you need to, you know, market it differently because it's queer, or if you need to market it differently just because it's a niche audience, right? Like, then it's very hard that for the publisher to even, they won't have the contacts and they won't, you put the money. And so I think you do end up sometimes getting locked out of some of the bigger marketing drives on the publishing side. The other thing also that nobody told me when we were getting my book out was blurbs. Like, who goes after the blurbs? Because I thought it was the publisher, but it was supposed to be me. And I didn't know any other authors at the time. I didn't have a writing community. I didn't know other YA writers that, you know, today we all sort of do this. It's almost like, you know, second nature, where we find other writers in the same genre. We boost their books by writing blurbs about them. They write blurbs about us, boost our books. It's a nice community. That wasn't really the case back then. So like, you know, I don't have blurbs in my book. I have the trade reviews from like Publishers Weekly and Kirkus, but I didn't have the community, and I wasn't made aware that I needed to go and find the blurbs. So I think, you know, you can get lost, especially with a big publishing house.
Yeah, it's been a really weird experience for me because my debut was published by Inkyard Press, and before even like submitting to them or signing a deal with them, like I had heard from other authors that they were really good about marketing and communication with authors, and that, you know, they didn't have the biggest budget as like a smaller imprint of HarperCollins, but that they really worked hard to make the most of the small budget that they had. And that was totally true in my case. Like, there were a couple of times where I had to go chasing them for information about stuff that was going on. Or like last year, I got an email that was like, hey, you've been invited to Y'all West, and emailed them in a panic. And then they were like, no, we submitted you for Y'all West. We're going to pay for you to go. Don't stress about it. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Because I don't have the money. But yeah, they were like really great about that. And then they got abruptly shut down last summer. And so now, like, everybody who was at Inkyard, all of our books have been delayed. There's been no communication. Like, we are all like at the bottom of the pile now. And so it's been a very strange like shift going from like your book is going to be, you know, coming out next season, and here's everything we're doing. It just came out. Here's everything we're doing, to nothing, like literally nothing. I don't really have a point. I just wanted to complain about that.
No, it is having that marketing plan from your publisher makes all the difference. Well, I'll say marketing and publicity, because marketing and publicity are two different things. Marketing is all the stuff that you pay for. So like ads that are placed on websites and in like in papers, because some people still put ads in papers and in trade publications and stuff. So all of that is marketing. And then publicity is all of the stuff that's free, but it's not guaranteed. So reviews, interviews, op-eds, all of those things. You like, as much as your publicist can like love to have you do all of these billion interviews, they submit you for Good Morning America, there's no guarantee that you're going to get any of the publicity stuff done. So it's like the things that seem the things that it seems like would have the biggest impact for us tend to be the things that aren't guaranteed and also don't necessarily move the needle. Like with trade reviews, they're not necessarily going to get you in front of readers, but they'll get you in front of booksellers and librarians and teachers, who will then get you in front of your readers. It's with, you know, marketing, they can run all the ads they want, but if nobody clicks on them, if nobody acts on them, then it doesn't matter. But saying all that, if you have none of those things that you see, it can also feel like you're just kind of like dropped on a desert island with nothing to like save yourself but a slightly sharpened stick. It's just, I know I lean on my agent to get the publisher to tell us what's going on. She is not afraid to bully the publisher and find out what's going on. Love that about her, and I love having an agent who is willing to bully people on my behalf. It just, one thing that she said to me that going into the release of the second book was that I needed to be clear about what would make this launch a success to me, not what would make it not what would make it a success for anybody else. And to make that list and be kind of very clear about if this book did all of these things, then I would feel successful, because it's not, so much is not guaranteed, and so much money thrown at something isn't necessarily going to, make it popular or move it or get it in readers' hands. So it's all, I wish I could say like, the more money they throw at your book, the better it does. I wish I could say that. I wish.
I just want to say thank you, because I didn't know the difference between marketing and publicity until just now. So
my day job, I'm a journalist, and I get pitched a lot of books. So I have a lot of contacts with publicists because I interview authors. And so that kind of gave me a window before my debut came out of how books are pitched and how I pitch them to editors. So what I did before my book came out was I thought about so book one has the main character is a planner. She does like a whole planner system. So I thought of these are the three planner companies that are owned by women of color that I would like to reach out to and say, hey, I think my audience is your audience. And so I approached my publisher with that. I actually said, here are the three planner companies I'd love to approach, either doing a giveaway, all these things. And the one that I love, Passion Planner, they happen to be having a 10-year anniversary right around the time my book was coming out. I have the same exact one, Brittany, literally. Well, it's right here. Oh my God, same one. They're fantastic. But they, what I did was I had approached my team about it. They reached out. Then we all got on an email together, and basically they had a 10-year anniversary conference in San Diego where their main headquarters are. And they're like, hey, we'd love to give your book out in our VIP package. And it just happened to work out time-wise, but because I was asking them what could we do together? And they're like, how about this? And so they actually stuck it in their VIP bag and gave it out to a bunch of planners. And to me, I was like, that's a win, because those are the kind of people who would like a main character who's a planner. And that's the one way I thought of it. So for my next book, that's what I'm also thinking about. Who are the people who would like to read this? And it's other people who like the same kind of things that are in the book. So if that's at all helpful, I came to them with everything. I was like, here are the people I want to reach out to. I reached out to people. I just think having known how, I've been pitched books and I've pitched editors books, what sells a book and why an editor buys a piece, that kind of helped me to think about what do I want to do for my book. So if that's helpful to anyone, it's kind of thinking about a paper planner who's the main character is most likely going to connect with somebody who also would go to a paper planner conference.
Yeah, I remember when I got my marketing plan from my publisher, and it was pretty sparse. And they were like, we're going to post you on our social media during Pride Month, and we'll post you on our social media during Hispanic Heritage Month. And that was it. And it's funny having this conversation today because I just finished Yellowface. And I'm just reading about all this publishing stuff that I knew, and that was what other people got. But I'm the one part I am thankful for, I think, is distribution. For the first 6 months of my hardcover release, anytime there was a bookstore anywhere near me, I would go. And it's I always saw my book at Barnes & Noble. I saw it at a good number of independent bookstores. And I was like, that's something I didn't do, right? That's something that my publisher got me. I'm I just have to get people to stores somehow. And there are other things too. everyone mentioned so many avenues for marketing or publicity, and I'm thinking of like all the things my publisher didn't do, but like anytime they didn't do something, like I did something out of spite that like helped me out. So like one time they ran an article about like, you know, books to buy if you like Heartstopper, and like the reason I made my TikTok about it is because they didn't include my book on it, and I was like, what? And so like that's why I did that marketing. And then like I found out they didn't submit me to like any festivals, even the one in the city where I was living that would have been free because I could have walked to there and like done a panel. And so I complained about it on Twitter, and then like someone from the San Antonio Book Festival was like, fill out this link and we'll have you at our festival. So like complaining helps, right? I know some people don't want to be vocal about that, but I will be, and I'm fine with that. And then also like I teach at a university, and they give you discretionary funds for like travel and you know, research. For a creative writer, anything's research, which is great. So I did like I made my book tour happen. Like I contacted indie bookstores, I talked to authors who were in the city, and I was like, will you do this event with me? And then I just promoted it, right? And used my discretionary funds for the tickets, and then for like a couple places I had to do a hotel, but not many, because it was cities that I knew people and could stay with them and crash on their couch. But I think, you know, I'm traditionally published for a reason. Like I wanted the resources that come along with that, but I also like knew I had to supplement it in some way, and did my best on that end.
It's interesting hearing. I think the more that I hear other people talk about what their publisher has done, I realize that my publisher actually did quite a bit for me, because my marketing plan was pretty robust, I would say, because I had a very big influencer push. We did like the whole Bookstagrammer, booktoker, what are the other ones? Booktuber, like that whole thing. And so we did like 2 pretty big rounds of that. And I think that's where most of the buzz from my book came from. And then they sent me to Teen Book Con. So before my book came out, I had a lot going for me. But after my book came out, it's been like nothing. And because I was so spoiled, I didn't realize like I should have been doing things myself this whole time. And it's embarrassing for me because my degree is in marketing. So I've been scrambling since then. I'm like, okay, I'll go to my indie store. I'll make the posts online. I'll do giveaways. I'll do whatever. So I've been scrambling in this past, like, I think my book came out like 2 months ago. So so I think things like this is important, to knowing actually what other people are doing for themselves, and also what their publisher is doing for them. Because I probably would have done a better job of helping myself a few months ago.
Yeah, the cliff of post-publication is very real and shocking.
Not interrupting, I hope. I just want to say I love everybody talking about how your like our day jobs or past lives like come into play in terms of like marketing stuff. Like I have my degree is in graphic design, and so my experience is in graphic design and illustration. My husband is a graphic designer and a videographer. So I did all of my pre-order art and stickers, and I just kind of like drew all of this stuff, and then I took it to the publisher and was like, hey, I already made this. Can you help me out? And they helped me with the like printing distribution for my pre-order campaign. My husband like filmed a trailer for me, and it's just cool like hearing how like journalism and marketing and being in academia or like whatever like also can come into play to help you with like getting those things done.
I will confess this. I bankrolled my own pre-order campaign. Solo Dolo, my publisher, they have done a lot of things and sent me a lot of places, and like they're incredible. But I like the art, I commissioned that myself. The stickers, I got those printed myself. I reached out to the indie bookstores that I worked with to do the pre-order campaign that I did, made the graphics myself, talked about it myself, you know, gave stickers out at my in-person events myself. Like all of that came out of my pocket. So it's not always the case that like the publisher is going to, even if you bring them something, they won't always pitch in and help you with that. And I don't know how well that pre-order campaign did because sales numbers were what they were. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I also brought them a lot of stuff that they said, no, good luck, or just no and bad luck to you. So I feel you.
They'll be like, all of the love in our heart, but no, we're not doing that. We can't. And some stuff they just can't do, like legally, they cannot do that, which I understand. But I think that a lot of times, especially with social media, we see other authors doing things and we don't know the kind of mechanics behind them doing those things. So it's easy to assume that the publisher is stepping up and doing stuff in every situation and feeling like we are kind of left. I'm sorry, I'm a curse. We left ass out. Sometimes we are, sometimes we are not, because sometimes people sink their own 5-6 figures into promoting their own books because they have that to spare. Sometimes, people bankroll their own tours or, duct tape together their own tours. Not to say that one is better than the other, but we aren't always transparent about how we do the things we do. So appearances online can be very deceiving. And so I wanted to be very clear. I came out of pocket for this. This was not my publisher. Do I recommend it to other people? Not necessarily. I love my art and I love the stickers I gave out, but I don't know how much it actually moved the needle, but it was fun.
I also went crazy printing things and doing too much, and it did nothing for me except waste probably time and money that I could have used doing something else. So I feel you.
I like that we got to the complaint section and we're all like, let me to double dip and go again. But I do have just one tiny gripe that I'd like to bring up because it's really funny. But I got all my blurbs myself. I DM'd people and I got Adam Silvera and Adib Karam and just people who were definitely writing for my target audience. And then I was like, the least my publisher can do after they delayed me the third time, this time for 3 months, I was like, they can make me blurb graphics that I can post on social media because I don't know how to use Canva. I refuse to learn. I'm not that person, even something very simple. And so I asked my publisher and they were like, sure, we'll do that for you. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't have to fight them. They sent me 4 out of 5 blurb graphics. And I was like, oh, when do I get the 5th one? And they're like, we don't have the time or resources to do that for you. And I was like, you have the template. You changed the name, you changed the words, and those are the resources and time that you don't have. Mm-hmm. So I had to pay some, and it was Aiden Thomas. They didn't give me Aiden Thomas's blurb. And I had to pay someone to make a cheap replica of what they had done, which looked pretty close, but you could tell it was a different font because we couldn't find the right one. And let me stop there.
In the time it took them to email they could have probably just done it.
Exactly.
That is a justified complaint. That is as the more you spoke, the more I wanted to fight them on your behalf. So
or they could have at least sent you the template.
Now that I've gone through a lot of the questions, I'm thinking I feel like this is a good therapy session, for you guys, just to please go ahead and just say what you feel. It's fine. We're among friends.
Yeah. I don't want to rag on my team because I'm at a smaller publishing house. I'm at Abrams. They put out fewer books in a year. So I feel like we're all able to get a bit more care, as much as a team of people who are understaffed and overworked and underpaid and under budgeted can do. I love my publicist. She has she will make a way out of no way. Love her. Mary is great. I feel like we are all working hard to get this book into people's hands. What I think moved the needle more than anything I did on social media, any pre-order campaigns I did, was going to trade conferences. So going to ABA, meeting and talking to actual booksellers, the people who are going to be stocking my book, talking to librarians, talking to English teachers, actually doing those things, I think, helped me more than anything I did on social media. Also, radio interviews, podcasts interviews like this one and like other podcasts you can do really help in getting your name out there. I like writing op-eds. I had literally had people show up to my event and be like, I heard you on NPR. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for coming. So, you know, old school things like email, if you can use Substack or Ghost or like whatever you want to use, like having your, and to fight the algorithm too, collecting your readers and sending out a newsletter, whether it's like quarterly, like Ayana Gray does, or whenever you have news, or weekly or monthly or whatever, that helps immensely. Because you can take those newsletter subscribers with you wherever you go. You can't, if, you know, when X implodes, we can't take our people from X unless we've connected on another place already. It's just all, and I think that book marketers are, bless their hearts, they are 15 years behind every other marketer, like when it comes to tactics and strategies. And I want us all to, I want them to be more fluid and more like flexible for all our sakes. So
Brittany, I
Well,
want to
thank
also just
you.
say like I did hire a publicist at one point, and yes, it's expensive, but it was very, very telling in terms of like what happens when you hire a publicist. Where all of a sudden it was just amazing because, you know, they would unlock pitches for me, right? So it's like, write this for Writer's Digest, write this for this magazine, you know. So I got a whole bunch of, as you put it, like the op-eds and so on. And that I think did actually boost my sales, which is, I think, you know, a lot of the social media can boost engagement, but what boosts book sales? And it's usually finding a new audience that actually connects with your book.
yeah, and I actually brainstormed all of my op-ed stuff and like went in, gave my publicist a list of stuff because I couldn't I could afford my little social media people, but I couldn't afford a publicist. Sometimes that is like a huge amount of money and it's for something that's not guaranteed. So I just couldn't swing that. But every single op-ed, I just gave her a list of topics I could write on. This time through, I literally wrote out 5 pitches that we could pass to people, and she just sent them to the exact publications that she knew would want them, and all 5 of them got placed. So sometimes we really need to, I think that and nobody knows your book better than you do. They can read it, but nobody knows your book and your experience better than you do. So kind of brainstorming those things that you could like also write about. If you know of any publications that may be not on a traditional publisher's radar, you can say like, oh, I could write this for these people. Like I've written multiple things for the Folger Shakespeare Library's blog. And that wouldn't be something that was necessarily on their radar, but it's perfect for like a book set in Shakespearean London. So.
Yeah, at this point, I think that maybe I'm cursed because my first book came out in January and its sequel just got delayed for the 3rd time. So I feel you. It is turned in and they just keep being like, oh, we haven't gotten around to it. And because I've like shifted imprints against my will, I don't even know who my marketing or publicity people are anymore. And I don't think there's any marketing or publicity people who know that I'm supposed to be the person that they're publicizing. So like the period, and I don't know if like other people who have had books come out a little while ago and don't have one like immediately coming out right now feel this, but the period like where it's like the book is out and it's like that has happened and now like you don't exactly have something immediately on the horizon is a very strange place to be as an author, where it's like, well, like I don't like, I feel like I've already been pushing this so much and I don't know where to tell people to go, but I still want to do author opportunities. And it's just a very strange time.
I would say, you know, so for me, I think that was a big question, right? Because I had my first book come out and I had the option to publish a second one. But for me, I felt like the story was done with the first book. So I wasn't going to write a second one that was a sequel. And after that, I started pitching a bunch of ideas to my agent, and all the ideas I pitched were not YA anymore. And in my head, I was like, well, people are going to grow up, and the same people who enjoyed my YA book are going to want the next book, which may not be YA. So I will still keep my audience. But I don't think like it would have worked out with the same editor and the same agent and everything. So I think it, eventually we ended up parting ways. But what I wish I had done at the time was to be able to connect more with the readers of my first book, because I would have been able to sort of say, stick with me. I'm going to write like little pieces, maybe like like a little blog post every once in a while, connect with you, keep you in the loop, and also like learn from you on what kinds of stories are resonating with you, because I'm growing with you. Right. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at, but I missed the boat. But if you're in that period where you're in that lull, I would say just like trust that your readers who liked your first book will stick with you, even if your next book comes out 15 years later.
At this point, it might.
See, so this was a topic I was thinking about when, you guys were talking about like experience with like the publisher and like leading up to, release or like post-release and things like that. And I noticed also as a reader, like the more I'm like online and stuff, is that a lot of authors, especially just from my opinion, from what I've seen, a lot of like authors of color, they're usually doing like all their pre-order campaigns like out of their own pocket, it looks like, when it comes to like, including swag or like mailing readers like, fun little swag for pre-ordering or library requests and stuff. And I'm just kind of surprised that like the publishers don't do that for you guys, because it seems like something really easy that they could do.
What I was told from my publisher, so I know that pre my book coming out, they had done pre-order campaigns that was like, send us a receipt and you'll be entered to win this thing. My editor was like, we haven't seen a big return on that. Like, we haven't seen people submit receipts anymore. They're like, she's like, even for fantasy books where usually people really love to have like the special thing, it's really, people aren't submitting receipts. They just don't take the time anymore. So she's like, it's not worth it for us. So instead they did like bubble mailers with my book on the cover, and they did stickers, and I signed a bunch of book plates, things like that, which would have more like in-hand appeal, but they're like pre-orders, just people are not doing it the way they used to. And I as a reader who like, I love to pre-order because I know what that means for an author, but I would pre-order for stuff, and literally like I won like a baking set from Simon & Schuster, and they took like 3 months to send it to me because they probably didn't like have any time to think about it. So I was like, well, I'm not going to try to do that again as a reader. So I think there's just not that return on investment for publishers to want to do it.
Got you. And then that actually leads me to the topic of pre-orders. Like, so for pre-orders, like, is that would you say like really important for you guys, or is it like within like the week of release or like post-release? Like, how does that impact or influence maybe how like the publisher is promoting or something like that? Or if you want to talk about your experience with like pre-orders and stuff.
So the thing about pre-orders is all pre-orders count towards your first week sales, which can help you hit the list, like the indie lists and the USA Today list and the New York Times list. Sometimes. I will say that it would have triggered a bonus for me if I had like hit the list and sat on the list for 2 weeks. But the thing that's been better, I think, for me, or just as good, is that my book has long legs, so people are continuing to buy my book even like more than a year out, which is another kind of marker of success. It like, even if you don't, sell a whole bunch out the gate, if you keep selling consistently, that is also something that like your publisher, and when you're trying to sell the next thing, other publishers can see as a mark of like, oh, you're going to be a good investment.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of like how important pre-orders were to, your rankings and the sales and like how your publisher views your book and how it's going to perform, because they're essentially trying to plan ahead. And so, again, it's like a theme. I did nothing. And so, I think, Brittany, you're making a very valid point, right? Like, I think also one of the things that people don't realize is when you publish your next book, your first book starts selling again, because people will go to your backlist. They will sort of go back and try to rediscover you. And so I think like if you miss the window of like getting yourself out in pre-order, your best bet is when is your next thing coming out? Because that can sort of boost the sales of your first book.
I agree with that, and that's why my publisher gave me two options. Either I write my book in like 3 months and it comes out in 2025, or I get like maybe an extra couple months, like 3 months, or I forget what it was, and then my book comes out until 2026. So I wanted to use the momentum from my first book and like have them as close together as possible. So I wrote that book very quickly. Is it good? Who knows? But as far as pre-orders, my book only came out 2 months ago, but there's no way to know how many pre-orders you did, because at least at this stage for me, I might find out in like a couple months or whatever, but at present, I have no idea, like not even a conceivable like inkling as to how many pre-orders I did. All I know is I didn't do enough to make any lists. So I wish the importance of that was communicated more. And I also didn't do a pre-order campaign. My publisher just did like some giveaways on Goodreads for what are they called? ARCs, or advanced reader copies. So I vaguely know that pre-orders are important, but to what extent, I'm like not entirely sure yet.
Yeah, I was like the outlier in that my publisher did pay for my pre-order campaign. I mean, the art was free, but I just kind of sent it to them hoping that they would be like, here's $50 to go print it. And they were like, oh yeah, we'll handle like the printing and all of the shipping and like all of the like management of it. And I was like, oh my God, like no way. Yes, this is amazing. And that was something that was like really great for them to do, especially because like, then I didn't have to be worrying about like going to the post office or whatever. But like even knowing how important pre-orders are and like having being so appreciative of having like money invested in it, there's still very little way to know exactly how you're doing. Like they can kind of give you a guess, but even though like they are using the pre-order numbers to kind of determine how much support they're going to give you and like, where you're going to fall in their like marketing hierarchy, it's still like kept very opaque from the authors. And so it makes it really tricky to kind of like set expectations, because you're kind of given like, at least I was given like a ballpark of like, hey, it's going good enough that we're not disappointed, but you're not going to hit those lists, girl. And I was like, okay, understood. But I don't know how like having such a big gap between books before the second one comes out is going to affect that. And like, you kind of hope that people will be anticipating the next one, but it also is a very outdated system. Like people want to buy something and have it now, and to be like asking readers to put money into something up front that they are then going to forget about and receive later, and that's what determines like how successful you are, how much support you get, is really like kind of playing everybody involved. But publishing stays outdated, so that's kind of where we're still dealing with.
Yeah, I knew pre-orders were important, but I had no way of driving those up. Best believe when there was a Barnes and Noble pre-order sale, I would throw up that same graphic that I made in PowerPoint. But there wasn't a lot I could do, and I've heard from people who did pre-order campaigns that like it doesn't make like the biggest change in pre-order numbers. But so yeah, I don't really have any pointers on that, but I did know. I was like, okay, I hope people are pre-ordering, but I've never pre-ordered in my entire life. So
I actually think it's really interesting hearing about that from your guys' perspective, because as a reader, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna like pre-order your guys' books so I can like support you guys, and make sure you guys get your dollars that you deserve. But hearing, I think with Ivelisse, you had just said that it feels like a really outdated system, and as a reader, I'm like, I never saw it that way. But I guess
stop.
Oh,
that is how it works.
for sure. I will. Trust me, I'll keep pre-ordering. I just feel like from an author perspective, I think that's also a good way to like look at it too, because for you guys, like, they put a lot of emphasis on it, even though like you guys have said, like maybe readers are going to order it and then they might forget it, and they'll forget to follow up on the sequel or something, or like your next book. Or maybe like the numbers show that you guys aren't hitting particular lists for such and such reason, and I just think it's really interesting hearing that, because as a reader, I don't know about this stuff, so I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and it really is that like everything that sells before your book comes out counts towards that first week of sales. So pre-orders help to, like, that is the most likely time you are going to hit the list, because you have all of these like months and months and months and months of sales adding up and equaling 1 week. So you can have like over 8 months have sold 1,000 copies of your book, 1,000 hardcover copies of your book to hit the like most of these lists. And that is what pre-ordering helps. But it like Ivelisse said, people don't want to do that. People don't want to wait for something that they paid for. And that's that's another kind of drawback of Amazon being so ubiquitous. We don't really have to wait for things anymore. And like streaming, you don't have to necessarily wait for things. So people are pre-ordering less and less. And it kind of sucks. One thing that reviewing on Amazon is actually very beneficial, because once your book hits 50 reviews or more, the algorithm pushes it out to more people. So please review books on Amazon as much as we like, as Amazon is the beast that it is, but yeah, that's something that definitely like materially helps authors get more visibility. And I think there's another like 100 reviews trigger something else, and then there's another like amount trigger. So the more reviews you have, the more people who see your book. And yeah,
I think that's something also that people don't realize is how the importance of Amazon reviews. Like I have a bunch of reviews on Goodreads. I have almost no reviews on Amazon, and it means that the algorithms just never pick me up. And so I think like I've basically gone on drives and asked all my friends and family, I'm like, I know my book came out a really long time ago, but can you like remember what it was about and write a review for me?
I was like one of the Amazon like editor picks or whatever. So I thought that was going to really boost me in the algorithm, and it really didn't. I have like less than 20 reviews, I think, for my book on Amazon. So
yeah, I think I'm at 29, and it's been a long time. So
And then this actually got me thinking too about like just like the longevity of like publishing your books, and it got me thinking about a BookTok, because I noticed like when authors like blow up on TikTok, like a lot of them will usually like go towards like the backlist too, like the backlist of authors, and catch up on like all their releases and stuff. So on that note about BookTok, if you guys have like any stories to share, I know Erin, you had some stories to share about your experience on TikTok. Would you say TikTok is helpful for helping you guys? Because I know it's like a really big platform these days with like publishers and everything, and a lot of readers go there. Like, if you want to share some thoughts you have on TikTok.
Yeah, I'll just be completely transparent. I had a Heartstopper TikTok and a Red, White, and Royal Blue TikTok sort of blow up at the same time. And by blow up, I mean they both combined had like 500,000 views. And when I looked at my author portal for those 2 weeks, like it was kind of like maybe 100 copies per video. So that's 200 copies sold because of 500,000 views, which, you know, I wish the math were a little better on that, but like that's just what I keep in my head. I'm like, okay, if I get this amount of views, this is the likely amount of copies I'll sell, and it's never worth it, because like for every one of those like successful videos, like the other ones, like there are many other ones that like took a lot of my time and, you know, gave me gray hairs or whatever. But yeah, but what's been helpful lately, actually, I messaged an indie bookstore on the app and asked them to put my book up in the TikTok shop. And so like including the link to my book for the TikTok shop actually led to, you know, for way fewer views, like a higher percentage of sales. So I think, you know, I had a video that did maybe like 50,000 views or something, and I sold like 80 copies. But it's because of the ease of clicking on the, you know, the little attached item and buying it from TikTok.
As the person who said that I am never going to make a TikTok account, I have noticed from like what people in other online communities have said that TikTok is really for readers. And if you enjoy like making videos and stuff, you know, that's fine. Knock yourself out. And you can, you know, as an author, you can post those there, and you know, maybe one will get 500,000 views and it'll be amazing. But the books that tend to blow up on TikTok, from what I've noticed, have been like completely reader driven. And so there doesn't seem to be a huge point in like building an author platform there if it's not a platform that you're already drawn to, because it tends to be like people talking about books that they're reading that really gets results, and not as much like writers talking about like, I have this book coming out and this is happening. And like sometimes it does, but if you're talking about the books that become like a TikTok sensation and then they're on like the shelf at Barnes and Noble of TikTok sensation or whatever, that seems to be like mostly like I don't know what makes people decide that this is going to be the book that I saw someone talking about on TikTok, and now like 6 million of us are going to go buy it. But that's what I've noticed.
I was going to mention that. So I'm on TikTok, but what I found interesting was that I did a teen writing workshop at my local library, and I had it sold out, and I was surprised. But then somebody had messaged me of like, oh, my niece really wanted to go because you're like, your book's on TikTok. And I tried looking for it and I could not find it. Like I was like, what am I? And then I met somebody else who was like, oh, like UCLA student who was like, oh, I've seen your cover on TikTok. And I was like, what am I looking for to find it? And she was like, oh, I look for books for our POC authors. And I was like, okay, great. I couldn't find it myself. So I don't know what I've just been told that, but I can't literally find any evidence of it. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that I haven't seen my book on TikTok, but I also don't know how it's being found, but it's cool that way.
I've had people tell me that too, and I've tried to look for myself, and I've seen a couple of videos, but they have like maybe 5 views each. So I'm like, how are you finding me? Like, what are you typing in to find it? So I don't know. TikTok is a mystery to me. I started one and then I kind of abandoned it because I didn't feel like it was moving the needle for me too much. And it was so time consuming, as Erin said. And I don't know. I just couldn't do it. But I like to watch TikToks, like, but participating in it, it's just not for me.
Yeah, I just want to like clarify that I didn't mean to sound like completely nihilistic. Like if you're on TikTok, as an author, you should delete your account and give up. Like that's not what I'm saying. I just I feel like since it is the big platform, like new authors feel like pressure to try and be catching up and like be like, how can I make my book blow up on TikTok? And the answer is like, you can't. Just wait. Unless, you know, you happen to get really lucky, but it's not a thing to do under pressure. It's a thing to do because you feel like doing it.
So I did notice we are over an hour. So I did want to maybe try to wrap up this discussion with one last question. And this is ending on a very positive note. So for you guys, like, what does, I guess, a successful, I guess, like marketing, publicity, plan, or not plan, but, you know, just in general, like when you're marketing your book or just publisher, whoever, like, what does that success look like for you personally?
I think for me, it's when my book gets into the exact right hands of the person that I meant it for. Like I got this DM the other day from this girl who was like, I think this book was like written for me. And like I started like tearing up. And like those are the kinds of things that for me feel like more of a success than even like the trade reviews or like the sales or whatever.
I would echo that. I think every once in a while, someone will sort of either leave a comment somewhere or send me a note that's basically, why wasn't this there when I was growing up? This is just the book that I needed. And that both tells me the people that are reading it are older than I think they are. And also it is heartwarming to know that it is reaching at the people for whom the story resonates.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I wrote Unseelie for myself when I was 15 and had just gotten my autism diagnosis, and you know, I didn't know what that meant and I hadn't seen anybody like me. And so having readers who are in a similar place read it and reach out to me and like let me know how much that means to them is like what my biggest dream for the book was. But just from a much more calculated, like professional perspective, since you can't like say, okay, well, I want, like, you can't decide what marketing you're going to get. You kind of have to hope for the best, and you can ask for things and they can say no. But just transparency with the publisher, like from the professional side of things and the more calculated side of things, it's okay if, you know, the publisher is not going to throw a ton of money at you or get you this opportunity, but sometimes they will not be like totally transparent about that, and you can ask about opportunities and they'll just be like, oh, we'll see, and not do anything. And I think in general, if publishers could get better about managing expectations and saying like, this is what we're going to do for you, like this is what you can expect, this is, you know, kind of the amount of effort we're going to put into this is where you fall on our priority list, I think that would lead to a lot less like crushed dreams and broken hearts from authors who like nobody had the guts to say, listen, this book is going to matter to somebody, but it's not going to be a bestseller. And I just think that my publisher did a pretty good job of doing that. And that's what I really want, especially for like debut authors who don't know who their audience is going to be yet.
For me, it's been finding readers, and like I have a reader in Australia and somebody who emailed me in England and checked out my book from their library. That to me is just amazing, that like a book I wrote is all around the world. I'm just, that's successful to me. So
I think for my publisher, like success would be them doing the things that I've been doing myself. Like taking that upon themselves, like sending me on a book tour, giving me blurb graphics, all of them, sending me to festivals, you know, acknowledging me on social media sometimes. But for like, you know, for readers, I do love getting DMs from usually older queer men, or just non-teenager queer men saying that they wish they had my book as a kid, and, or, you know, it healed something in them that is still that teenager. But I would like to know that more teens are reading it. Right now I think I've heard from one high school kid who has read it, and I'm like, it's almost been 2 years, and that's one kid. And I hope it's getting to teenagers. Like, it is a YA book. It is for them to reach them at this time in their life. And I think that would seem like success to me. But I've never really seen it in a school library, just like public libraries.
See, so we are at over an hour, so I just want to say thank you so much to you guys for joining in this conversation, and I just really loved hearing what you guys had to say, and just talking more about your experiences and everything. And I think we will end the stream here. So again, thank you so much for joining me in this. I had a great time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good to
you.
talk with you guys.
For a great
Thank
rest of your day,
you.
you guys.